Thank you for being here. First of all, I wish to publicly express condolences to the family and friends of Daniel Williams, who was the headmaster of 3 Mile Secondary School. He was, as you're aware, speaking at a public meeting in Bartica, campaigning for the People's Progressive Party, and he had a heart attack, a massive heart attack, and passed away. He was a very valuable member of our team, and he understood what is at stake in these elections. And he was carrying the message diligently to the community of Bartica and the neighboring areas. It's a loss for all those who love him, and it's a loss for the People's Progressive Party too. And we intend to, at our rally in Bartica, recognize his contribution to public service in Guyana, as well as to the People's Progressive Party. There is an issue that I want to address right at the beginning, because I've had a number of text messages from many people and their relatives. The President has received numerous messages, as well as senior policemen. And so, before I came to the press conference, I sought to familiarize myself with the issue of promotion of policemen and women. As you know, the President made an announcement that there'd be a large-scale promotion of police. Many who have served their force and the country with distinction, they have no blemish whatsoever, but have been, for one reason or another, not receiving their promotions. He gave the appropriate directions to the Commissioner of Police, and this has been implemented. And I was told that 2,800 police would receive promotions, and already about 2,000 of those have been notified. Another 800 would receive their notification soon. There are others who have contacted us and said that they may be bypassed or overlooked for one reason or another. They may be part of the 800, but I want to assure all of the police who have contacted the President and senior policemen and the Minister of Home Affairs and me too. They approach you wherever you go, that everyone who is eligible will receive the promotion. Everyone who is eligible. And there shall be a review process for those who feel aggrieved that they have been overlooked or bypassed, that their case would be examined, and once confirmed, they too will receive their promotion. So I just wanted to say that publicly here, so that if there are concerns or misgivings among policemen and policewomen, that they would know that they too will be, if they feel that they have not received their promotion and that they deserve the promotion, that their case will be reviewed too. In the past week, we have seen the campaign by various political parties intensify. And the competition is good for a democracy. And I urge people to focus a bit on the messages being carried by various political parties and the capability of the people that they're presenting to us to deliver on a better life for Guyanese. So we've had, since APNU AFC of the last government that from 2015 to 2020, splintered into 4 political parties, one headed by Simona Brooms, Amanza Walton, Nigel Hughes, and Norton. Some of them have been struggling to even get to have relevance. So I saw an extremely funny video from Amanza Walton to say, where she said, PPP must stay out of our inbox. That she doesn't want to be our prime ministerial candidate. Now we have Mark Phillips, who has been announced as our prime ministerial candidate, a person of great quality, former head of the army, who has served 5 years in very difficult circumstances throughout COVID and then thereafter with distinction. Why would we ever want an Amanza Walton to replace him? Nobody is in her inbox. She's just looking for relevance, to do a video to say PPP is trying to get her. This week she actually did that, to be her prime ministerial candidate. It is just a game. Nobody pays attention to what she does. They don't believe she has a capacity to manage anything. She never, in the period between 2015 and 2020, she was a junior staff at Civil Aviation Department. She's not demonstrated any capability to manage anything. And her messaging is, even the things that she promises have no resonance with Guyanese. I'm not going to mention the others, but since APNU is our main political opponent, I need to spend some time on APNU and its campaign. We have already demonstrated that no person who has carefully thought out the issue, no Guyanese of any race or religion or gender, who's carefully examined their slate, would ever want to risk their future by voting for them. They have no capability to plan, nor do they have any capability to handle the complex task of governing the country. Mai Paul, I said right here, who is their vice presidential candidate, was a junior staff at the Ministry of Local Government. He didn't even manage a department. Jureta Finance was Nagamoto's assistant. She never managed anything whatsoever. in the last government. And Norton had a designation without an office and spent a significant amount of his time at a place near Border Market. This is the leadership of the APNU. And those are the vice presidential candidate, the prime ministerial candidate, and the presidential candidate. How could anyone in their right sense want to entrust the future of our country in the hands of neophytes? And it puts all of us at risk. It puts all of us at risk. And job creation, delivering on health care, on education, managing an economy that's changing in its complexity every day, the need to prepare for the new sectors of the economy, to have it more diversified, to think long term, to avoid the Dutch disease. All of these are issues that they've never had to deal with, and I believe are incapable of dealing with. So those are the people who will lead should America happen and they win the elections and put all of us at risk. And then what are they saying? They've gone back to the old messaging of the past. So you hear them talk about now a commission of inquiry on extrajudicial killing. You remember in 2015 that was promised too. And what did Granger say? Granger said, oh, I can't pursue it because it's difficult to do it. There are no witnesses. There's no evidence. That's exact quote from Granger. They now would have us believe in 2025 that they will do that. That's their big messaging. That's what they're going to do. The last time when they were in office, they spent all their time running us down rather than fixing the country and delivering on their promises. You recall, arrested Dr. Luncheon at my office. He couldn't even in a wheelchair. Sam Hines had to go into questioning at Soku. I had to go into be questioned at Soku. Irfan Ali, they laid 19 charges against him. Made up charges against him. Anil Nandalal was charged for stealing textbooks. Almost everyone, Frank Anthony, Priya Manik, and everyone, Ashni Singh, was arrested and in chains before they put him in chain before the court. That's what they spent their time on rather than delivering what they said they will do, which was jobs for young people, to help with lowering the taxes, to deliver more welfare to our people, help the pensioners and the farmers and the miners. They did none of that. All they did was to harass people and then spent lavishly on themselves. Salary increases for themselves, special treatment for themselves, for the members of the cabinet and their families, to take them abroad for medical care, paid for by us. So they're back at it again. That's what they will talk about in this era. And then again on racism. So they promise, for example, APNU promises to lower land application age to 18, which they did. They did in 2015 to 2020. And so they lowered the age, many more people applied, and they then did not do any housing. spent very, very little. It was only after the no confidence motion that they hurriedly went to Parliament illegally and got some money to put in to just do some roads, basic roads, and then handed out some pieces of paper without any infrastructure for about 2,000 or 3,000 plots. Nothing in Linden, nothing anywhere in the country. In 5 years, practically nothing on housing. But yes, they lowered the age to 18 years that you can apply, but not prepare the lots. Why do you think we have such a big backlog in Region 4? We'd be able, within a year, to get everyone who needs a plot of land in Regions 1, 2, 3, 4, well, not 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, except 4. Because we're now only allocating to people who have applied up to 2019 and 2020. We've not been able to, although in this region, we've done nearly 30,000 lots. Nonsense. Again, it's the sloganeering. We will reduce the age that you can apply for a plot of land by 18, but we do nothing to prepare the plots of land. Leave that to the PPP to hand out. And then complain that we're not doing it fast enough too. Like what they complain about poverty now. They say, oh, there's poverty in Guyana. 47% of the people live in poverty. They cite data from 2018, the World Bank survey from 2018. And they don't stop to think about why we still have poor people. You have to they didn't do any housing. They took away jobs. 35,000 people lost their jobs. They removed the water subsidy from the pensioner, etc. And what about those 35,000 people who lost their jobs under them? What do you think? They will become richer when they lose their jobs, or poor? The sugar workers, 7,000 of them, couldn't even feed their families. You recall the case when BBC came here and a child sat in Wales, which is a mixed community. Child sat on the step, and she was like practically in tears and saying her friends were calling her because her parents couldn't afford to send her to school because her father lost his job at the estate there. And she was embarrassed because she couldn't tell them why. You recall that? And they say now, oh, we have poverty. So how do you, if you 35,000 people, now more people are working. The same sugar workers are working again. Many more Guyanese are working, coming out of poverty. And they say again, you know, the next fallacy, oh, we're flush with oil money. We've dealt with that definitively now already. 37% of the budget, only 37% is oil money. Our spending on education and health and roads alone is more than all of the oil money in the budget. So that's so much for that fallacy. So that is what APNU is doing across the country. It's sloganeering once again, negative campaigning, racism. So this week they did not sign the code of conduct because the ERC now suddenly is a political stooge of the PPP. The usual language. All the other parties sign on, but they can't sign because it's a ERC. They don't trust the ERC. They don't trust GCOM because GCOM is suddenly rigging. It's the same old negative, the same old PNC. They can't change. It's all about negative. It's not about a positive attitude to the country. And why would anyone who is even lying now to them that the PPP rigged the elections in 2020, they stand on the platform and say that? Why would anyone want to support them, young or old? In from across the country. Nobody should want to support APNU or AFC. They talk about the massive rally they had in New Amsterdam. We know what massive is. It's over 500 to 700 people, and mobilized from as far as Linden, because we have the bus. I can share with you the buses that went there. They went there since 3 o'clock waiting for 4 o'clock start, and it didn't start till late into the night. So people are seeing this, and I saw a young lady posted, if APNU could tell me, or something to that nature, if they can identify 5 things they did for Linden, Region 10, in the 5 years they're in government, they have my vote. 5 things. They cannot. They didn't do anything on housing, no house lots. We're doing 3,000 house lots. No job, they closed the call center. The jobs disappear. 1,000 persons lost their jobs in the bauxite industry because they killed it in the Berbice River. The call center was closed down. Now we had operational there. We put in place the part-time jobs alone for over 1,500 persons that they opposed, leaving out all the economic expansion there. Ask them how many roads they built. In 2 years alone, we have spent $18 billion on roads in that region. And guess who are doing the roads? Like this year alone, 700 contractors from that region, many small people, and most Afro-Guyanese, that are earning now by becoming a contractor. You ask them what they did for anything whatsoever. They didn't build a bridge that we're building now, the 4-lane bridge. They didn't pave the Sousdike Highway that we're doing now, and the road going up to Mabura Hill. We're doing that now. We're building new schools there. We spent $30 million on upgrading the hospital. What have they done? Five things. Nothing. And we've had really 3 years to do this, because 2 years we lost to COVID. So when they complain about the crowd, they were going crazy today about the people at Linden, and they said, we bust all the people into Linden, etc. They clearly have missed the point. First of all, it was mainly people from Region 10, but even if some people went there from other parts, like Georgetown, who went up there for the drive, it means we have people to bus. They can't even find people to bus to some of their locations. They can't find people to bus. So the thing is that you can cuss out the people in Linden all you wish, but people remember. They remember what you said in 2050, and they saw what you did. Norton is from that community. Ask Norton if for one day he's ever stopped there to interact with the young people. He doesn't. He drives past as a little lord. Granger popped in. Ask them if they saw Granger spending time in that community, or any minister for that matter. We have been there in the community. I met with people several times. We had youth interaction. I went there maybe 4 times to talk to young people in the area. We launched several programs to assist young people. And the president has done this several times, and we have constant presence from Minister Edgehill and Todd and many others from the government in the community. And so they were upset with the rally and the results here. But people will support those who have their best interests at heart. And you can't play the race card every single time. At some point in time, it's not effective anymore because people see through you. So this is what their campaign is about. All negative, and then some unrealistic promises that they keep making to people. They have no experience to manage a government, none of the top leaders. So that's the main opposition party for you. So I want to talk a bit more now about Essequibo Coast. I've had over the past couple of days quite a few small meetings, whistle-stop meetings across the coast, about 20-something of them. And I must say I'm very happy, the mood is good, and people understand what is at stake in these elections. In spite of all that you see on social media, they understand the risk for Essequibo and for the country that should APNU were to win the elections again, or any other political party. And it's fresh in their memories on the Essequibo Coast, because when I was there and I spoke at some of the meetings about the engagements we had in the 2015 to 2020 period, many persons share their experience. One lady said to me, after they had promised $9,000 a bag for paddy, and many people voted for them from the sugar belt, the rice belt, and many people stayed home in Essequibo. And then Granger subsequently said rice is private business, and they put the taxes on pesticide, fertilizer, machinery and equipment, no help to the rice farmers. They cut the drainage and irrigation budget, the farm to market road budget. She said Holder went there once, the Minister of Agriculture, and they sought to see him. And they raised a whole number of issues, and he said, thank you, and disappeared. And that was the last time they saw him in 5 years. In 5 years. By the time when we took back office, the infrastructure was practically destroyed, and rice prices were like just over $2,000 a bag for paddy. So they remember that. And the Amerindian communities, not just in Region 2, because I had a lot of Amerindians came to the meeting, they also remember the neglect. The people in the Pomeroon, several times they had floods, etc., no help in the entire Pomeroon. We have, since we got back into office, we've deployed 4 excavators that they manage in the Pomeroon. They're empoldering their lands, and because of that now we can prevent flooding. We've dredged the mouth of the Pomeroon River so that you can have a faster flow of water. They've received a ton of help for their farming there. And so they know this. And they don't want to go back to those days. So that was something that came out from a lot of the meetings. And people are mobilized and ready. And I spoke about a lot of the plans for Region 2, because I was in Region 2, and I said to them, for each region, and for people who are listening from every other region, we have a plan for each region. Region 10 has its own comprehensive plan that is not even part of those things that you see there all of the things we've put on the flyer, which is a synopsis of what our plans are. These are just basic general things that we do, but we have area-specific plans for each region of our country. And so for example, we have already, I spoke of it, many of them didn't know about the plan to start next year, the 4-lane road from Charity to Supernam, and the other regions, some of the other regions already know about that, or the business incubator and the technique, the innovation hub that we plan to do in the region, the technical center so that all of those students who are on gold scholarships but doing technical studies, they don't have to come to Georgetown to do practicals, a lot of those things, about the assistance, that's opening up more lands for small farmers there. We are exploring doing that outside of the Aurora area, which is about 5,000 acres. We're even looking at the Pomeroon to open up more land. So people were appreciative of these specific things outside of the support that they will get for safer communities and the general things that we talk about, like assistance in the homes for people to own more their own home and to assist them to build and to improve their homes, which is a promise right across the country we'll do. People will get help to build and also help to improve their homes directly from the state. So we spoke a lot about those issues there. I spoke about the cost of living there too, because sometimes you see some ads running now if you go online, and people don't realize what we've confronted. We didn't expect after COVID or the war in Ukraine the upsurge in food prices. So we looked, as I explained to them, at 6 items, and I did it here several times. 6 things that constitute like increased cost of living, that will push cost of living up. Electricity, water, transportation, internet payments, mortgages, and food prices. These are the 6 biggest costs to a person. Electricity, we subsidize it, so from 2020 to now, no change. 80 million of subsidy. Water, billions of subsidy, no change from 2020 to now. On transportation, every gallon of gas and diesel, $560 of subsidy. That didn't change. In fact, if you look at the graph, we have the lowest gasoline price in the whole Caribbean now. You should see that graph. Lowest gasoline price in the whole Caribbean. On mortgages, we got the rates to come down for those who have mortgages. And then internet, we liberalized telecommunication, which led to people, even if they're paying the same money, they're getting more bandwidth and greater speed. So those 5 areas we had success in because there were things we could do policy-wise. On food items, we're not so successful because even the things we produce in Guyana, they were an increased production for, they went up. Like I gave the example of cassava, which I did on the coast. $40 a pound in Parica. By time Reed and Hoop, it's $120 to the farmers, $120 per pound in Reed and Hoop. That's the figures I saw there. And our production of cassava in Region 3 went from 3 million pounds to 20 million pounds. So clearly we have to do something. That's why the president said more farmers market and some other things, increasing production in agriculture. We have to look at tackling that issue. But we've been honest about it, and we tackle the things that are under our control, the 5 items that push prices up. But food prices were different. So I explained that to people, and they understood that. So these are, the Essequibo visit was really good for me because I got a feel from people and their fears about it. And the same thing happened in many parts, like in Region 6, when I was there and talked to many people, they said, we know how bad it was. And these are not just the sugar workers. The sugar workers know no future of the sugar industry without the PPP. But also people in New Amsterdam, they said, oh, things were so slow. Nothing. Because New Amsterdam is more on commerce, and the money that people earn from different areas, used to circulate in the regional economy. Nothing was circulating in the regional economy. It affected everyone. There were no jobs for people in New Amsterdam or anywhere else. So I get that feeling from everywhere. And so people recognize what is at stake in these elections. And that's why they said to me, I found out a lot. In Queenstown, I was there, and I had a meeting in Queenstown, and afterwards the guy said to me, these are young Afro-Guyanese who were coming to the PP campaigning with us. They said, the rumor APNU is spreading is that, after the elections, they will kick you out. You wouldn't get any benefits, and you just, they're using you for the elections. Well, if you look at the growth of the PPP, didn't local government elections, we made huge inroads into New Amsterdam, as I explained, 6 of 14 seats, up from 2 of 14. And here in Georgetown too, now we have 11 of 30 seats, up from 2 in 2016. And it happened all over. In Linden, 2,500 votes, Bartica, etc. And I said, those people are still campaigning now, 2 years later with the PPP, and doing well for themselves, and not just Afro-Guyanese, but all Guyanese. So this is the fear that they are trying to spread again to keep people away. The rumor they will kick you out as soon as the elections are over. Well, our track record has demonstrated differently, and we're the only party that's bringing people together. So, but they keep at this all the time. And then they told me about what the Azruddin Mohammed has been doing there too. So here's the Win party has been paying off some individuals in the communities to convince the others, well, to lie to them basically, because they don't have much convincing to do, to lie to them to get their votes. So one is that they will get money after the elections. 2, that they'll build houses for them. They didn't even promise that in the manifesto, which is another lie. And that they would, basically, I'm going to come to the other issues, but what the other lies are. And they do a clever thing, which is they go around with groups of people in buses, that's what I was told in some of the communities, and take the same people everywhere and take pictures. And so it's a rotating crowd they have, and then they post it online to look like they have momentum, a lot of people supporting them in these areas. Like Lima Sands, the people told me, some of them came to see me and said, not people from our area, just came in there, went to a house with one family that support them, with about 7 people from the area, and then they brought in a number of people from different parts, from the Pomeroon, etc. And they even point out the picture, look, these people are all from the Pomeroon. So they're doing that everywhere where they go. And so this is something that is happening right across the country. They run, it's almost like a media, it's a media campaign alone. The underground campaign, when you look at that's why they would not hold a rally like the PPP. They would not hold a rally. They're in Linden, when they had the biggest crowd they claimed they had were the Blue Wave. We saw they photoshopped the pictures. The same faces appeared from the images they put out. And 2, we have videos of people collecting the money after. The same thing on nomination day. You don't want more evidence of it than what took place on the square of the Revolution when the woman went to collect her money and doggy beat her up. So we have demonstrated evidence now of that they're paying people to come. If you look at the people who go to the PP meetings, even APNU meetings, I don't think APNU pays people to go. They go there on their own free will. They're happy to go there. You see their faces. They're participating in the events. They're excited to be there. So this is what's happening. And I think it is kind of misleading to other people who might not know this, but who are looking at this and saying this is very competitive. You know, they're getting big crowds. They're going to do well here. So that is, we expect that to continue. That they will, I saw even a video circulating where he was like giving some guy some money or something like that. So let me talk a bit more about some of the lies that they keep telling, because I see a new thing now that, first of all, Azruddin Mohammed tells a series of lies. So I'm pleased now that finally the Starbuck News did an editorial in which they blame PPP for everything too, the usual thing, but they asked some tough questions of Mohammed. And so let's go through a couple of the lies that he tells. So first of all, I saw in front of Umanayana when he was targeted, when he was asked questions by the media, finally, they asked, he said, "Oh, I'm not sanctioned, it's my companies. I'm not sanctioned, it's my companies." And he keeps repeating this everywhere in the country. So I took the opportunity to print out once again the sanction document that was published on June 11, 2024. And the sanction document says, number one, OFAC is designating Azruddin and Mohammed Enterprise, Azruddin and Mohammed Enterprise, that's one sanction. Two, OFAC is designating Nazar, that's his father. Then OFAC is designating Team Mohammed Racing. OFAC is designating Mohammed Enterprise. OFAC is designating Hadi's World. All of this, going down the whole list. He is mentioned in the sanction. It's not his company, he's number one. When it says designating, it means you are sanctioned. So it's a lie that he is not sanctioned. His companies are sanctioned. But then he is very contradictory too. He says, you know who sanctioned me. So that's his new thing now. And then he has some of the APNU supporters who hate Jagdeo. They'll say, oh, Jagdeo, and he nods. Jagdeo sanctioned him. Well, it's not Jagdeo. I wish I could have been so powerful to tell the United States government who to sanction and who not to sanction. But he says this to get sympathy, that he is the victim of PPP sanctions, that it has nothing to do with the United States of America. That's the second lie that he tells. The third is that all these sanctions are not really serious. Modi was sanctioned and he became Prime Minister in India. Irfan Ali had 19 fraud charges and look, the US is working with him. So the US will drop this if I become president. Well, Modi was never OFAC sanctioned. Never. Irfan Ali was not sanctioned by any foreign government. It's APNU who put the 19 charges vindictively against him. So he shifts the focus from himself to other people. And look, give us an example. It's total lie. Then Travis Chase posted, oh, ministers, PPP ministers will be sanctioned. And then he puts it on his page, oh, PPP ministers to sanction. So what's wrong? I'm sanctioned, they will be sanctioned too. It's a lie. No PPP minister is on any sanction list or to be sanctioned. So that is switching. It's all the time he does this. He switches out. He then says, the sanctions are not serious. People associated with me don't lose their visa. His father said it, he said it. Well, we have evidence of that. Odessa Primus is the prime example of that. Tons of people associated with him lose their visas. Another lie. On bank accounts, he said to people, you're not going to face consequences. Misled a lot of people. Now we have seen what's happening with all of these people who are on his candidates list losing their accounts because they're part of a formal organization headed by a sanctioned individual. Now I see them trying to switch again to say it's the PPP who's telling these banks to sanction them, and they're using the US ambassador. All the US ambassador said is, the banks didn't call us, the embassy, and that the OFAC sanctions are in the US. Well, that's true, but read what the sanction document says. Go back to June 11, 2024. It says here, sanctions implications, big and bold, sanction implications. As a result of today's action, all property and interest in property of the designated persons described above, that's all of the ones I mentioned, that are in the United States or in the possession or control of US persons are blocked and must be reported to OFAC. In addition, any entities that are owned directly or indirectly, individually, or in aggregate, 50% or more by one or more blocked persons are also blocked, unless authorized by a general or specific license issued by OFAC or exempt. OFAC regulations generally prohibit all transactions by US persons or within or transiting the United States that involve any property or interest in properties of designated and otherwise blocked persons. So that's the first paragraph. It then goes on to say, in addition, financial institutions and other persons that engage in certain transactions or activities with the sanctioned entities and individuals may expose themselves to sanctions or be subject to an enforcement action. When they talk about US nationals, etc., then they come down in another paragraph here. In addition, financial institutions and other persons that engage in certain transactions or activities with the sanctioned entities and individuals may expose themselves to sanctions or be subject to an enforcement action. Financial institutions. Now, I can show you, if you go online, you will see how many banks in the United States of America, when they don't do due diligence and allow sanctioned individuals or those associated with them to have a relationship with U.S. banks, those U.S. banks have been fined, they've been warned, and they could eventually lose their license. The United States institutions, they're fined. Go online and check how many banks have been fined in the United States. Massive fines because they didn't do due diligence and they allow one sanctioned individual or persons associated with them to have a relationship with the U.S. banks. So yes, the ambassador is absolutely right. Absolutely right. Those institutions are fined. So those banks now have to have relationship with local banks, correspondent banking relations. So if they, through the local banks, start doing business with the sanctioned individuals or those associated with them, you have implications for them in the United States of America, those banks. And they have been derisking all around the world. They're cutting relationship, like banking relationships and correspondent relationships with thousands of banks across the world because of this same fear, because the fines could be massive in the US for those banks. So when Gabi issued a statement, the Guyana Association of Bankers, they said we operate in two frameworks, the local and international framework, not just local framework. They, without a correspondent banking relationship with the United States banks, they might as well shut operation down. You can't process your credit card payments. You can't process your debit card payments. You can't make a transfer of money. You can't bank your reserves in the US. You can't invest in US instruments if you have excess reserves in these commercial banks. What do? You just have to shut your bank. I think even Timothy Jonas had that right. And you think any bank locally will risk that? In their own assessment, they have to protect themselves. And so that's why the 3 banks have done it, and I think the others might have done it quietly too. I think by now almost all the banks. Now, financial institutions are more than banks. And it says financial institutions in the sanctions. So a lot of the insurance companies now, their financial institutions, they will have to, if they operate with international banks where they also reinsure with banks abroad or with financial institutions abroad, insurance companies. They now have to start looking at whether they will expose themselves. Because if they can't reinsure anymore, they don't have major assets, so they then share the risk with an external financial institution or an external insurance company. They too will suddenly may face serious problems and lose that relationship. And we warn people. People were warned, they know about it, but this guy and his henchmen and the people he pays off, they're very clever at misleading ordinary people. Do you know how many people have come to me and say, we were told, when they receive their letters from the banks now, they come here to Freedom House and they said, what are we going to do? And I said, what am I going to do? I don't want to even talk to you, because next thing they would say, I'm calling you here to talk to you. They're coming now to Freedom House and calling me. About 5 persons called me and say, how can the BP help? And I'm sorry for them, really sorry, because they're telling me stories like one, I don't want to mention his name, but he said, they told me if they win, I will get a job, a better paying job, and put down my name here. I signed to the document. I suddenly ended up on the list. He's adamant I never agreed to go on no list. A lady said to me, an Amerindian lady came to see me, and she said, this is what they told me. So a lot of misleading of ordinary people. They're exposing tons of people. Like some people came and from the Amerindian communities on the Essequibo coast, and they said, this guy is giving some of the leaders of the community, which I have to verify, money and large sums of money to deliver. They'd say, if you deliver 50% of this community, I'll buy you a car or something else. A big inducement. So some of the people are going around, misleading ordinary people. So he promises, the Team Mohammed is promising that sort of thing. Win party. But one person they make a big promise to, and then he goes around. So he's going to make a lot of money and go to mislead every day, talk to people. Look what they're putting these poor people through now. And of course, then switching again. Now, so the new switching is that the PPP caused all of this. The PPP taking away the bank accounts. The PPP sanctioned him. Everything else. That's what his PR people do every day. Mislead people. So I was pleased when, for the first time, APNU started asking some questions too. When did you become interested? So the questions that they posed to him, what should be of concern to all voters on September 1st is whether Mr. Mohammed is running for the presidency of the country in a bid to protect himself from the sanctions that have been slapped on him, and what may lie ahead, and whether he'd be up to the task. He would not be the first person here to seek refuge under presidential immunity, and that is all the more reason why constitutional reforms must curtail these. When did he become interested in running for the presidency? Did the inclination coincide with the beginning of his legal worries? The U.S. sanctions or the threat of sanctions? It is important that this question be answered, as Mr. Mohammed's lavish, publicly known lifestyle did not naturally recommend him as someone interested in public service. Not much is known about Mr. Mohammed's educational background. Again, there's APNU asking this, what, that he should tell people so far, and what his work experience has been. At least Norton, we know Norton Arang and finance and Mai Paul, etc. What has been his work experience outside of, I would say, smuggling gold? Outside of smuggling gold, that's, I know he had great work experience in that. That's demonstrated now. Would he be able to engage as a parliamentarian or even a higher position? It would be a spectacle in Parliament if he were, imagine him making a speech on any issue in the Parliament. So Sabrick has been asking, or is he living on wealth generated by his father? And this is, I'm surprised that because they've been giving him a lot of publicity for the nonsense that he does. And they ask a ton of questions here. So people have to start asking the questions there too. And clearly, he's collaborating with APNU, and maybe a lot of people who may not want to come to the PPP may go to him because APNU is like dead too. So he's benefiting from a little bit of that, but he has nothing to offer. And that's why I say to young people around the country, when the 50,000 is done, or the few people who get payoff to mobilize others in your communities, they will get some payoff to mobilize and mislead. What happens on September 2nd? What happens on September 2nd? He disappears. You're not going to go, you get to go to his home anymore because he only allowed people to go into his home when he had trouble. Pay them off. They could never have accessed his home before. You're not going to be able to do that. So what happens next? Who is going to have to deliver in these Amerindian communities again? So these are crucial questions, and I hope that people pay attention to these matters that are coming up. I've seen some other issues surfacing during the course of the week, like my poll talking about some corruption at GPL, the usual thing, corruption at GPL, and that's all they talk about, corruption and stuff like that. And you see the position of the government. One time they were saying we were in bed with some company, Method 4. I saw that coming out now. Then we canceled the Method 4 bid because we believe they didn't have the appropriate experience. We then went to a company that's fully experienced. They're negotiating now. Nothing has been signed, but yet it's corruption. In fact, that should be seen as fighting corruption. That's why I don't want to waste time, because my Paul has nothing else to say. But what I'm going to end here, because I just want to talk a bit more. No, maybe I shouldn't end yet. I just saw Starbucks News. During the course of the week, they come up, you know, when the U.S. said that the tariff will be 15% now, Starbucks News puts a headline, Trump ups tariff on Guyana by 5%. Now, any sensible person here would know that it was 38%. It's now 15%, but yet Trump ups tariff by 5%. So this is all to support a narrative that our discussions with the US government failed. And therefore, look, Trump upped the tariff by 5%. Didn't happen. It came down from 38%. That was announced. 38% was announced by Trump at the beginning. Now it dropped to 15%. So that's first. I explain right here that the reason that the US government had, in the first case, put a 38% on Guyana, that it had to do with one thing, your trade surplus. The countries that are exporting more to the United States than are importing more from the United States. So when you, like, I saw Christopher Ram flays government over 15% Trump tariff. So they cited, how is it that Haiti and Cuba and Suriname have 10% and we have 15%? All the countries that were importing more from the United States than exporting to the United States, they got a 10% tariff. And those countries that had a greater export got higher. And we had one of the highest because we had a big trade surplus with the US. We were exporting a lot more. So we went up there. Ashni Singh met with the US trade representative. Our embassy met with them. We've been in discussions with them. They understood the argument that our trade surplus arose largely because of the increase, the oil export. And as a result of that, when the new announcement came, it fell from 38% to 15%. They should be happy for the country. We said that they're continuing discussions with the US government because we are continuing the discussion to get it down to 10%. They should be really happy that we succeeded in bringing it from 38 to 15, although we are a country that has a huge trade surplus with the US. The other countries were not so successful, many countries around the world, India and the others. Now, they said it's a failure of our diplomacy. It's a success of our economic diplomacy. But Christopher Ram, well, he is just a fossil bitter every time he sees anything progressive in the country. I'm not going to waste my time. It just shows you how they can spin headlines all week. Something that we should be wildly happy about because of the success of our economic diplomacy and because of the understanding from the US administration, the collaboration between the US administration and the government of Guyana to get the tariff down from 38% to 15% while the discussions are continuing. That's great news for Guyana, and it shows the good collaboration between the US government and the Guyana government. They deem it a failure. One says Trump upped the tariffs by 5%. So ask them, what was it before? If it was 38%, how at 15% you could be upping it by 5%? It's just, I don't know even who comes up with this sort of thing. So it just, every day we have to face this sort of thing. The lies and the mischaracterization. On the other hand, Azruddin could barely string two words together and they give him a whole lineup as though he has said these things. Barely string two words together. And so this will always be there from the naysayers. We remain focused on what we have to do for this country. We're campaigning heavily. Our campaign is about not putting this country at risk. If 3 years after COVID, we have managed to restore jobs and to get the infrastructure going and the outlook positive for the country, 12 hospitals under construction, the same number of hotels under construction, development every part of Guyana, where people are getting higher pensions, our children are getting more money, free education, we're investing in agriculture and mining at better tax rate. Just imagine what another 5-year term can do for this country. That's what we're campaigning on. The others, no track record, nothing. And they pose a risk to our border and everything else. So that is, I'm going to end here today's short press conference. Thank you. Can someone bring my phone, please? I'm expecting a call.
Good afternoon, Trina Williams, Guyana Chronicle. On coming back to cost of living, as you mentioned earlier, the government has instituted a number of measures to mitigate the cost of living. But there have been some concerns that the benefits in some cases are not reaching the consumers because of players in the private sector, such as minibus drivers. Yeah. Is this something the government intends to address in the future?
Yes, so the thing is that I know, like I'm in Berbice now, everybody has been saying there was this excuse that, well, the toll across the bridge is pushing up the cost of transportation. Now it's toll-free, but the price didn't come down. Your price did not reduce. So that's the problem when you live in a free market system. Now people are calling for us to control fares and all of that, but those things you have to approach carefully. Get my phone. You have the phone? Yes. All right. Let me see if they called you. Yes. So that's something you have to think about carefully. The idea is we're exploring now some more public transportation, and we have to focus more on, I just dealt with the cost issue. We have to get more money in people's pockets. So we have to do that by lowering the taxes, which we promised to do, so people can have more spending power. Already the public servants it's $120 billion more per year they earn. We see it reflected in more vehicle purchases. Pensions would be increased, public assistance increase, like all of the people want something they ask me, and when I go out, would the SIP workers receive higher stipends in the future, or the CSOs, or those on part-time job? The answer is a resounding yes. Yes, they will see those increases. So we have to focus on this issue from two angles. One, or maybe multiple angles. One, getting more money in people's pockets by getting better paying jobs for them. Two, in ensuring the taxation system allows people to keep more money in their pockets. They pay less taxes. Three, helping people directly. So what are the things that people have to spend money on, apart from the 6 things I listed? They have to spend on education. If we take away the burden of you spending on education by a transport grant now, so we can help you pay for the children going to school, and we can do a good school feeding program. And so you now have to spend less of your money on educating your child at every level. If we upgrade health care, so for tertiary care too, you don't have to spend money, you get more help for dialysis and cancer and everything else. Then you have more money to keep. If your pensions go, so all of those things. If we're helping people to build homes now, the poor people, lower cost lots, helping to build homes or upgrade their homes. Overall improvement. So it's not tackling things from one side alone. It is prices, it is getting more money into people's pockets, it's helping to keep costs down, like electricity costs will come down by 50%. And I see somebody said, oh, you didn't fulfill that promise. You check our manifesto. We didn't put 50% reduction in electricity, but we're working towards it because we're building now that project that will complete next year. And we've also been, because Essequibo is not going to be connected to the grid, but they too will see a 50% reduction in cost because we're putting up a big solar farm now on the Essequibo coast. That will be a huge reduction. We are working towards it. It should have happened before we had a delay on the project. But we didn't make a specific promise in 2020. We said we'll look at investing in electricity and probably lowering costs. We kept the cost constant. So that is something important. Imagine the others are promising $1,000 electricity bill. That's what APNU said. Director Finance said. Everybody will pay $1,000. And you ask them, how are you going to deliver this? Which project? We're opposed to the gas to energy, but which project? Where are they going to plug the points into? The plugs into? Which point to get the power at $1,000? It's just like nonsense. They talk all the time about electricity. So that's it. Cooking gas will come down too. Those kinds of things. So multiple fronts we want to help on. Taking the burden of education and health care off the family, assisting with housing, getting better paying jobs, reducing the taxes on people, assisting directly in the homes, so that by giving greater grants to our children, cash grant in the households and all of these things. So multiple fronts, improving lives of people overall in the country, getting our people trained. Every time we get a youngster, the same youngster that their moms are paying $50,000 to, we are saying, you come, you give us 6 months of your time and we'll give you a skill that when you go into the job market, you can make $10,000 per day. We can give you a skill to drive a heavy-duty piece of equipment. In 5 days, in 10 days, you will make the $50,000 that you'll get from them once in a lifetime. That is what we're saying to those youngsters. That is what we're saying to those youngsters. They not, come and knock down. We pay you $50,000 to knock down somebody's flag like what they're doing, etc. That's not what we say to them. We want them to succeed. We want them to succeed. We say to them, you apply for a plot of land. You're going to get it. You're going to get assistance to build a home. You'd find a job. We want you to. That's the future we are offering to people. And in every community, whether they're Indo-Guyanese, they're Amerindian Guyanese, Afro-Guyanese, mixed people, that's the future, young people we're fighting for. So multiple fronts we're approaching this from. We're not like a one approach party, multiple sides. That's how we see people getting out overall out of poverty and doing well. Yes, you wanted to say something? Yeah. All right, go on. Yes.
Coming back to the refusal by APNU and Forward Guyana to sign the ERC Code of Conduct, these parties have agreed to contest the election under the same existing conditions which they criticize. Do you believe that this is an indication of their intention to avoid scrutiny and behave however they please during this period?
Yes, it's part of that and part because APNU. Because Win signed it, and they're probably even more offensive on the ground against our activists than others. They threaten them, they cuss people out all the time, even more so than APNU activists. But they signed the Code of Conduct. So signing the Code of Conduct is not guarantee of good behavior. But the reason I have a problem with APNU not signing it is they're negative about everything. Every single thing. They're not positive about the future of this country. You know, you could have made your point there and signed the Code of Conduct, because it's necessary that we show even at that level some form of unity, that beyond the elections we have to still work as a country. So signing Code of Conduct is not a guarantee, and I hope that GCOM is vigilant, and the police too, because there are lots and lots of cases where that we have seen this happening. They need to take strong enforcement action against people who transgress election laws, and including paying people for their vote, because it's a crime. I saw GCOM now saying that, well, we always knew since last local government elections, they had a very explicit position. You can't use your phone in the polling place. You can't take a picture. Even when politicians go in, they can't carry their cameraman into the polling place. You have to stay outside. You can't take pictures in the polling place, because that win is telling people, take a picture, you get some money afterwards. But that was not now, not for these elections. It was prohibited even before. You can't take photos in the polling place.
I want to ask a question about the Forward Guyana Party, which continues to position themselves as this credible and inclusive.
Which one is this? That's the Simona Booms or Amanza? I don't even remember their which is which, yes.
The party's prime ministerial candidate has publicly posted and made some of the most disparaging remarks against the LGBTQ plus community. And
who is the prime ministerial candidate?
Nigel from Linden, a pastor.
Oh, I don't even follow. Frankly speaking, I don't follow those parties. Because if you think about supporting them, really, you just have to, you have to reassess yourself. So what did he said bad things about people? Okay, we have already stated our position in that matter. I told you the last time that we support policies that don't discriminate against Guyanese for any reason whatsoever. Once you're Guyanese, and you have certain rights based on our constitution, not to be discriminated against. And we intend to strengthen those provisions in our law. But as I made it explicit, that we're not supportive of gay marriages. And I said also, even SASOD, when I spoke with them, they said they were not suggesting that.
Indeed. While your party has made it clear its commitment to having policies or more laws to prevent discrimination, do you believe that political parties seeking national leadership have a responsibility to uphold these basic standards of respect and dignity?
I agree. They spread hate. It's either they're against one Guyanese or another. It's either racism or against people for their sexual orientation or against women for some reason. It's the haters always find somebody to hate and to target. These are haters. You have a lot of them in society. And you have an industry of haters. People like Christopher Ram, I add him to that. Haters, they don't want to see anything positive happen for the people of the country. Their worst nightmare is that all Guyanese unite. There will be no place for them. That's why every day they try to pull people apart. There'll be no place for that industry. They've been around for a very long time. I've had to deal with them for almost my entire career. They can't be happy for anything positive that is taking place in our country for young people or the future. Everything, and they have an opinion on everything, like this Christopher Ram. He's a specialist now on tariffs, wasting time. So that there's an industry out there, and you see them online. Every day they go, that's all they do. Try to hate people rather than trying to bring people of our country together. Bitter people. And so I put these people in the same camp, a lot of them. Amanza herself, you remember she said Indo-Guyanese are mentally lazy. Just imagine anybody else saying that. And she got away with it. Imagine anybody else saying that, because they're divisive by their very nature. We're not into that. We're trying to bring our people together all over Guyana, everywhere. Yes.
Luan Williams, DPI. Good afternoon, sir. I know you spoke briefly about the gas prices being the lowest in the Caribbean, but for the benefit of our audience, can you say how government was able to make Guyana the country with the lowest prices for gas?
Because I explained this, we're subsidizing it for $560 for every gallon of gas or diesel you buy. That's how it done. I don't know, have you seen the table? I think it was circulated widely. We should get that table out from how the gas prices are in the Caribbean, the highest in Barbados and lowest in Guyana. And we don't refine our oil product or crude here. So I'm talking about refined products. It's the lowest.
Secondly, is your government committed to subsidizing the fuel cost in the coming term?
Yes, until the gas to energy comes on stream, because that would be for transportation. We will do that, and we'll continue doing that. And then we will also, the gas to energy will cause another set, electricity prices to come down, cooking gas prices to come down. We'll keep subsidizing fuel like gasoline and diesel. And so a lot of those things will happen.
Lastly,
we want to make sure that people benefit from this sort of thing.
Lastly, can Guyanese expect a cash grant before the elections?
No, not cash grant before the elections. I can assure you there'll be lots of cash grants after the election, but not before. And in fact, people people keep asking me all this, why don't you pay, like the PPP pay out this cash grant, another one before the elections? I said, listen, we're a party, once we put it there, it's in our manifesto. There'll be cash grants, there'll be increases in pensions, everything. You're going to get it. We're not like any other party. We're not going to disappear. from the landscape. We put it down there, you're going to get it. And you now will get it in a different form. It paid into your bank account. I don't know the people who are sanctioned, they'd have to come and collect it themselves. Those would have to come, those who don't have a bank account, they may have to come themselves and collect. But people will get it, and there are lots of things. Remember, we still have the remainder of the year. It's September only, and we have 4 months more after the elections to get to the end of the year. So there will be not just one, because we're looking at, we're already starting costing what we're going to do in the next 5 years. What are the projects we have to fund? So like the 4-lane in Essequibo, the one in region 3, we've already locked in Berbice from Molson Creek all the way to New Amsterdam, and then the one in region 5. So we know what we have to spend on capital budget for the next 5 years. We know we have well, not definitively, but a serious idea of the recurrent expenditure, how it would go. We know what the revenue stream will, and we're not banking on just oil revenue stream. Because if that comes in at the magnitude that we anticipate, we could do much, much more. But we already believe everything we promise can do, even with modest increase in oil revenue. Modest increase, and we anticipate a steep increase. So, but you can't plan only for that, because what happens if oil prices fall? So we're looking at all of these variables as we make a promise. Yes, please.
Dr. Jagdeo, Saskia Warwick from NCN News. Just to follow up to the gas prices question. With Ghana now offering the most affordable gas in the Caribbean, do you see this as an opportunity to attract more investment in sectors like manufacturing, transport, or even agro-processing?
So you know the gas prices, we import gas, right? So there are, that is, I mean, I'm speaking specifically here of gasoline and diesel, because people use that at the pump. So we import this, so the prices move up and down. Right now, the subsidy is $560 that you have. It's the lowest. But this price can even get lower. Our import is constrained by the depth of the harbor here, the size of the vessels that bring in diesel, gasoline, refined products. We are paying between 25 to 35% more than we should really pay. And we still have the lowest gasoline in the Caribbean, because we pay a premium based on the size of the vessels that have to come in. So you have to bring multiple vessels in. So that is why we've started exploring. About 5 months ago, you heard, I think at the energy conference, you heard the president speak about these storage farm that we're contemplating building out, where if we can bring in bigger vessels and store more, their storage capacity in Guyana is limited to. So if you bring in the bigger vessels, you have to have more storage. If we have bigger storage capacity, and we can now land bigger vessels either here in the area that has just been built out at Vredenhoek, or even keep the vessels offshore and ferry the fuel into these storage vessels. So the big ships come a bit offshore, and then they bring in smaller quantities until our storage is there. We could cut gasoline and diesel prices even further, and we're already the lowest in the Caribbean, and we subsidize it now. So we're looking at that to do that, because we may not have our own refinery, and even if we have our own refinery, it may not be the most feasible. So that is something that we're actively exploring. In fact, we're working on it already. So we can see even a further increase, which will have a big impact on what you are saying. Investments in manufacturing, electricity prices coming down would have a big impact on manufacturing and small business too. And then the development bank and the zero interest loan would also help a lot of small business. The business incubation hubs with small business. So a lot of those things. And co-invest. We're also co-investing where we build factory shells for people. They can also help a lot of the business develop. So there are multiple plans for all of this.
Secondly, VP, concerns have been raised by Afro-Guyanese groups like ACDA, who said they were not consulted on the construction near the 1823 monument. How does the government intend to address these concerns and ensure that historical sites are treated with the cultural sensitivity that they deserve?
Yeah, I saw that sometime. In local government, we made a promise to put lights in the ground, which we did, and people should pay in the ground. I don't know. I didn't know about that project. I saw today there's a protest or something. I agree that we have to treat some of our sites with sensitivity. That is a special place for us because that's where it's a sad area where people were displaced, quartered and displaced during slavery. And so I agree with treating that site with sensitivity. The same people, however, I heard Hamilton Green is there and the mayor. Now, somebody told me they were there today. I remember that place when it was a swamp. They talk about cultural sensitivity now. No lit, it wasn't lit, overgrown with bush under the same Hamilton Green. He never maintained, when he was mayor, for all those areas. He didn't do anything, overgrown all the time. So I don't know, and a lot of young people go there. What I think is important is that we should treat the area, as I said before, with sensitivity. But if our young people go there and they have maybe I don't know how many of them know how sacred that site is. Maybe along with some building there to show the history of the area too. And they can go and play in the afternoon, but they can understand how special the place is. It's a huge area, you know, it's a massive field here too. So I think a combination of both, but I agree that we should also consult with people. We should consult, especially when it comes to those sites. I think it's something we should do. But also don't leave it overgrown with bush and nobody knows the significance. How many people, you ask me how many people go past there and really know that? How much education has ACDA done, or not forget ACDA, anyone, the same Hamilton Green and the others when he was mayor about the site. But in local government, we made a specific promise to put in lights there, which we fulfilled. Because that was local government. People were asking, the kids in that area, Kingston and all of the areas, who come there to play in the afternoon, and a lot of kids go there to play, and it's a safe space. They were asking for that when I met with them.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo. Quick question from me. Just to follow up on what you said about the fares and the toll-free venture. I know you say this is a free market, but is there any room for the government to perhaps have dialogue with those who are involved in public transportation, be it taxi drivers or bus operators, to get them to lower the fees now that the bridges are toll-free?
I think we should have a discussion with them, but I know there is no magic one you can tell people to do that. But yeah, we should constantly have discussions because we want them to do well too. We want people to have lower fares, but we want the taxis and the drivers and everybody to also do well, you know. They should be able to earn a decent living. But that was a complaint I got from Barbies a lot, that people said, you know, well, the fares are gone now. We used to be told that the fares, the tolls are rather, the tolls are causing the high costs coming to Georgetown, and now it's gone, but we haven't seen any changes. But I agree with the discussions.
Good afternoon, sir. Rihanna Ramsey, Kaiser News. I have a question concerning the OFAC sanction
Yeah, sure.
persons.
Candidate, you were going to say, you can call Azruddin Mohammed. He is sanctioned by OFAC. You don't need to tiptoe around it. He is a sanctioned individual, designated individual. You saw it in the letter there. So
I wanted to know how does government or is government dealing with May Thomas in terms of paying her, given the action taken by the banks to close WIN's candidates' bank accounts, and if there are employees of the state and are candidates of WIN, how does the government deal with them also?
I don't know how many are employees of the government. We've really not checked. I know maybe some of the people who actually came to see me might be employees, yeah. So we'd have to find a way. I don't know how really, I haven't given it thought, because a lot of them are distraught now, you know. They're not going to be able to have a bank account. And many said, you know what I said to them? Listen, don't come to talk to me, because next thing they're going to say, I calls you to come here. So why don't you go publicly and say it? Write to the newspaper and say, I disassociate myself. I never signed up to be a candidate. I signed up for another person. And so I would advise them, if they're listening, to do that, publicly declare that. Maybe if they do that again, then maybe the banks might reconsider it, having done it publicly, and if they have written CHICOM. I know some people wrote CHICOM to try to come off the list. So if remedial action is taken like that, maybe it would influence the banks. I don't know. That's one way. If they were working for government and they were getting paid through the bank, then that would be a different issue. I don't know. They would have to probably collect their money in cash, but I don't know, we pay in cash too. So we'd have to think through it. We'll have to think through that, how that's dealt with. May Thomas, I found out one thing. When there was this from the other side that said, look at all these people losing their bank accounts. How is it that May Thomas still has a bank account? And I found out, and her accounts were closed by all the bank about a week after the sanction took place. So she does not, as far as I'm told, she does not have a bank account with any bank. So that's all I found out. I didn't ask much more about it. So that's my position as of this time. I don't know further. That's it. I asked, but because they were making it look like she had a bank account and the others lost their account, and saying that some of the banks were treating her preferentially. I think it's Citizen Bank who closed her account.
Paid?
I don't know how they do that, if she's being paid or not, but I know that for sure that she's not treated preferentially by the banking system. So yes, go on.
My second question is concerning, you mentioned it during your earlier method for engineering. I just wanted to know, can you say when and if the technical evaluation was done to determine method for engineering was not capable, on what grounds was the contract then awarded to InterEnergy?
So from what I follow, I'm not following because it's a MyPaul issue, and I don't generally follow what MyPaul says. He started off with this, but from what I gather, he's trying to make it seem as though the Prime Minister misled the Parliament. So there was a public process, and there's an evaluation done, and it was recommended that Method 4 be awarded the contract at a particular price. I think it was $7 million. Subsequent to that, it was discovered, that's what we are told, that they did not have the required technical capability, because apparently it was evaluated as a Canadian company, but there were more local people. This is all I'm hearing from them. It was more local people who were part of this arrangement, didn't have a track record, a long track record of doing this sort of work. So they decided not to award the contract. It was decided by the government not to award the contract, which is in its right. They then, since 2004, had an MOU with InterEnergy. There were several unsolicited bids thereafter. And the InterEnergy, consistent with the MOU, was recommended to the cabinet. It's cold, right? I see you shivering, yes. Here, and all right. Next time you come, you should, wear a jacket. I see some people coming in their blanket too, right? One young lady with a blanket, here. So it was recommended that they should be given their requisite experience, they should supervise the contract. And the rate was, I think, $650,000 per month. They are currently negotiating with that company. If the negotiations don't go well, they don't conclude the contract. And no contract has been signed as yet. But on Method 4, it was discovered, that's what we heard, that it was discovered that they did not have the requisite experience. So I see now in some quarters it said that they were close to us, Method 4. If they were that close to us, the contract would have gone ahead. It didn't happen.
Good afternoon, Dr. Jagdeo, Shinard Mentis, Sheriff News. Concerning the same Method 4 situation, can you say if InterEnergy has ever done, or if InterEnergy will be conducting or working with Guyana, if negotiations come into fruition, if they will be continually working with Guyana with any other energy related or any other field in that sector?
What do you mean by that?
As if InterEnergy, the company itself, would be working with Guyana, should the negotiation come into fruition, if they will be working with Guyana in accordance with any other electrical or any other field within Guyana, that they're currently working to have the contract with GPL. So,
that's what you're asking me about if InterEnergy will work with Guyana on what? On
a field or within the same field for Guyana, with Guyana.
Yeah, but right now, all that I know of is this contract that is being negotiated, which may or may not succeed. They may be awarded or not awarded. I don't know of anything else that has gone out to tender or we're doing with InterEnergy. There's nothing that I know of.
Secondly, there was the discussion of the personnel being, or the company not having the right skill set. Are there any provisions made within the educational sector for Guyanese so that we can have better skilled personnel, especially in that area, for future projects, so that we wouldn't have to outsource?
Yeah, sure. Now, I don't think that it's just about skills. I'm not, like I saw the article in the newspaper, and it says, in one of the news media, and it says, many of these people work at GPL, etc., who are part of the Method 4 contract. They may have the requisite skill, but when you hire a company to oversee a big project, the company has to have experience too, not just the personnel, because you can pick up personnel anywhere and you have to evaluate on the capability of the company, its status to supervise or its ability to supervise a large project of that nature. Alternatively, 10 people can just come together and say, yeah, we have the skill, but they don't have the company's capability. And so I have no doubt that many of the individuals may be skilled people. That's one. Or that many Guyanese are skilled in similar areas. Like, for example, most of our T&D work now is being done by Guyanese, transmission and distribution work. There are several companies now. Like we're putting up lights in GPL. We got 4,000 of the 100,000 lights we purchased to install street lights across the country. Only 4,000 got arrived. I think another 6,000 may come in about 10 days' time. And it is about, they told me about 15 Guyanese companies, private companies that are doing this, not GPL. So they have their staff, they're making money, and they're doing well. A lot of the transmission and the distribution work, fixing mains and stuff, are done by people contracted by GPL, many Guyanese companies. Like Cummins Electrical has been doing some of the biggest work in the country. So they have lots of capable Guyanese companies. However, supervision of a $422 million contract to put in steel towers with a 230 kVA line now across the whole, probably from Georgetown all the way into Berbice, and ensure that it lasts 50 years, 100 years into the future with the right foundation and everything else is a different matter. And we are building that for the next 50 years, so we don't have to worry about every time somebody drive into a post here, they'll be black out the whole country. Or every time, I don't even want to tell you what they told me the other night, because they sent me a picture. I was upset that the system shut down again, because they told me there are 2 8 hours blackout for the East Coast to do the part between the Ogle Road, the bypass on the railway embankment and Sheriff Street. They want to complete it. They need 2 8 hours blackout. They did it. One lasted longer. So they said, oh, we moved off all the mains. Now we're ready to roll. The road would be completed. And then power shut down again. And I called and said, why is this system shut down? They said, something they heard at Sophia. So then they went down there, the senior managers, and they sent me a picture of a rat in the thing. And I said, don't put that out. People would think it's just a lame excuse. They put some rat went in there. And I said, it's too lame, because people would not believe you with all of this stuff. So clearly the system in itself, I dealt with this on a radio program I had recently. The system, APNU didn't do anything on the transmission and distribution system. So that's archaic. We're trying to get that up. On the generation system, they didn't do anything. The system is still unstable. Because if you could have one little rat go and break a feeder and black out a whole area and burn it, then you don't have redundancies. And that's what we're trying to build now, redundancies. So circular system. So if you get a blackout here, if you have a linear system and you have a blackout or some problem here, all the people beyond that point gets blacked out. If you have a circular system, you can route the power in a different direction. So you have redundancy, you have circular systems. That's what we did not have for ages. The aging And big investments are taking place now. It's happening now, but you're going to see the system grow. There's no choice there. But so it's very different sort of skill I'm talking about. And the education system, yes, must support people who want to go in that direction. I agree with you, because we will need these skills to manage here. Not just there, the hotel. That's why we set up a hospitality school to train people for the 12 hotels that we're going to have. And we're now training to staff the 12 new hospitals and the others that would be rehabilitated. We have to train people. Similarly, GPL and the power system would need more people, better trained people to run it. It would be a modern grid. Yes, please.
Hi, Cordell Jones from Livewire News.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so the Win Party would have just concluded a press conference hosted by Bradley Sampson. When asked about the implications of the sanctions against the candidates, his response was sanction is just a word. I'm asking...
Who is Bradley Sampson?
Doggy.
Oh, Doggy held the
Yes.
press conference for when?
Yes. And answered quite a few more questions on the presidential candidate. Do you think politics in Guyana, persons are taking it as some sort of game or joke? And also...
This is a pure joke. It's a pure joke. If Doggy is hosting a press conference for Win, and they're making this look our lives, look, this is serious business. It's the future of our children and everyone else. Can you imagine how much disregard they have for us as Guyanese to have that do? A man who brutally on record, videoed, brutally beat a woman with a gun. And a woman who was seeking her payment would host a press conference like that. Now, and they disassociated. You remember the statement? They said, he has nothing to do with us. He's not part of our team, etc. Now, suddenly he hosts a press conference for them and then says, sanction is a word. Well, you tell that to the Mohammed. I saw they asked him, and he said he could travel around the world. The same as Rudin Mohammed. It's not true, another lie. You ask Odessa Primus if sanction is just a word. You ask the others. I can't imagine that they will actually even what sort of thinking goes on? Have Doggy hold a press conference? What's his name? Sampson?
Bradley Sampson.
Oh. It's really, they're making this like a joke, yeah.
And finally, we've seen some actions from some of the local banks. Could you inform Guyanese if it's a similar situation with insurance companies and these persons that are associated with the party?
I don't know. I know the Sanctions as financial company, financial institutions. So I'm sure that the insurance companies are probably looking, especially those that reinsure abroad, especially with US-based entities, they will probably be examining carefully those people too.
Abina Rockcliffe, Guyana Standard. Sir, I want to take you back to the method for debacle. Guyana Standard current article where we identify two issues with it. It being a local company and not having the capacity. And the second one was a sort of incestuous relationship. You said earlier that the company is not close to the government. So is it that your information does not suggest that there are people at GPL who have who have relations with persons or principals at the company? And has it come to your attention that there might have been some formal documents where the maiden name of spouse of someone at GPL appeared? Further to that.
No, but you're speaking in hypothetical. So there are a couple of points here. If this company is close to the government, as the article mentions, and they got a bid. They went through the bidding process. They were evaluated, and it went to cabinet, and cabinet was told this is the best company. And then we didn't conclude the contract with them because we subsequently found out that they did not have the requisite experience. Then that speaks a lot to the integrity of our government. It speaks a lot to the integrity of the government, because if it was so close to us and it was incestuous with the government, and they went through the whole bidding process and they were evaluated and it came to the cabinet for no objection, then they should have awarded. It would have been awarded to them because it's incestuous. So it speaks a ton about the government, and that even if it was close to the government or incestuous with individuals in the government, which you seem to be claiming, and you should mention the names of the people in your article, because you can't just say it generally. If you have this information, like you're telling me you have information I haven't seen, publish it. Please publish it. Publish the information. No, but I'm making it clear that I'm not dealing with hypotheticals. You said some lady or something like that was involved. I don't know about that, but you have it. Publish it, then that's fine. But as far as I know, I speak for the party and I'm a member of the government. And the government found out something that they didn't have the requisite experience, and we did not go with them. And we're going with a company, we're negotiating with a company that is experienced, that has done this in many countries in the world. It speaks a lot about the integrity of the government. Now, if you think that there are individuals in GPL who've been trying to steer this in a particular way, call the names of the people. So let it go in the public domain. We don't have a problem with that, and let them respond. But I can't deal. Some lady, who is this lady?
This is what I'm trying to get on the record, that the government at no point heard of any relations between that company and Kesh Nandlal.
No, I don't. I've never heard about that.
Okay. Further, does this speak to a breakdown at the level at NPTAB, that they would have approved this company without checking to see if it has the capacity and the experience?
So the thing is that it depends on, I don't know what went on at NPTAB or with the evaluators, because you hire evaluators, if they assess the individuals or the company. But I know for sure when the information came about the company and its requisite experience, the government took action. And there are lots of things we don't. You remember which party took the cabinet out of award of contract? It was this party. Cabinet used to award contracts. We changed the law to say that the cabinet only has a no objection role now. No, very few countries in the world have that. But this is all about, it is about sidetracking from the main issues. As far as I'm concerned, that the government of Guyana did not sign a contract with this company, regardless of whether it was closed or not to us. It did not sign. In fact, it canceled a bid that was approved already, or no objection was given to. Secondly, there is a negotiation process with a company that is experienced and for supervision of a project that needs supervision. That's what's going on. It's a routine thing for me practically. This is all amounting over making a mountain out of a molehill for a particular purpose. You want to talk about corruption on Mahipal? Ask him why in 5 years they never once comply with the law, the Procurement Act of Guyana, and post the awards made by MPTAB to the site. Every year under the PPP, since we resumed office, every single award made by MPTAB has been posted on that site. Who got the contract, the method of procurement, the size of contract. Every single one of that, that's the law, the Procurement Act. In 5 years under APNU, not one post is up there. We didn't know who contracts were awarded to. You ask, how did they, where is this, the 600 million that's missing from the 1.8 billion project that they did at Durban Park? Paul, since we're contesting elections back again, ask Paul about that, what role he had or Patterson had in that. You asked about the unsolicited bid that he's charged for, Patterson is charged for now and before the courts on the feasibility study for the bridge. Ask him about that. Ask Jordan about how he could have transferred large plots of land and without and give title to the companies without the people paying a single cent. It's a breach of fiduciary duty. I can go down a long list of things. Now, 3 weeks before the elections, the government canceled a bid that was deemed people close to us were supposed to get this work, and we cancel it. And that becomes now an issue. We should be lauded for that. We have, in these 5 years, we have faced lots of challenges with procurement too. And you've had a lot of people, the evaluators, who have not done a good job in many, many cases. We changed the procurement system, so 5 to maybe 7,000 people, Guyanese, now became small contractors by awarded on the basis of rates, because if they were bidding, they would never get a chance to get a contract. And that's, we've changed the lives of maybe 7,000 people who are doing work now across this country. So that's how I'd approach that.
If there's evidence of a link between...
Well, all of hypothetical. You show me the evidence. Why don't you publish that in the Demar?
I would appreciate if you allow me to finish my question.
Put it in the standard.
But if there's evidence and you see this evidence, would you advocate for a full-on investigation into this?
Yes, we have always done that. But you don't come and deal with hypotheticals. Show the evidence that somebody was involved. But the key thing here, if there was evidence, it means that this is a really clean government too. Because here you have evidence of a person close to government trying to compromise the bid process, and the PPP civic government does not award a contract to that company that they were trying to compromise in favor of. That speaks a lot about us. It's a great thing for us. So that's what I want to say. Yeah, go on.
Good afternoon, Kimal King, Guyana Standard. Sir, it was recently noted at an Afreximbank meeting in Grenada, or it was floated, that Guyana could be a potential solution for the energy needs of the Caribbean region. So I was wondering if you think Guyana would help the region at a preferential price with respect to its crude sales to its CARICOM partners.
I did not follow this, Kimal, but what were they suggesting?
So the president of the Afreximbank, he said that today Guyana is a major oil producer.
Yeah.
If CARICOM has thought about aggregating its demand for petroleum and talking to Guyana to refine and supply it collectively. And in that he was saying the region would be able to reduce its petroleum expenditure dramatically.
So we've never explored this with anyone in the region. I don't think there has even been such a demand. Even when Trinidad and Tobago said that they were hoping to have discussions with us about gas, I pointed out one thing. I said that the gas to energy project, we don't have any gas to supply to anyone there, because all of the gas will go towards generating maybe 500-600 megawatts of power, which we will need. This first phase is 300 megawatts, and then to do a fertilizer plant, which we're hoping that would be an investment vehicle for Guyanese, every Guyanese, because we'll put a share structure in place so people can invest in that. That's gas energy. I then said we are looking to monetize our gas, the gas offshore, that is associated gas, and some of the fields where we have had more gas than oil. The discussions are taking place now. We didn't pursue them in earnest because of the elections period now, but there's a tripartite engagement. We've been talking to Suriname about the possibility to eventually, because they have a gas field close to ours in the quarantine area. But they are not formally part of the tripartite discussion between government, Exxon, and what's the name of the company?
Fulcrum LNG.
Fulcrum, and Fulcrum Energy. That we're yet to make a decision whether there will be a project, but they are studying now all of the possibilities, including a floating LNG plant, bringing the gas on shore through a major pipeline for industrialization, or to generate power for the sale to Brazil, or any other use that could make the project feasible. I said in that context, they should explore Trinidad's proposal to procure gas from Guyana for their refinery. So we didn't exclude that, but that's only one of 4 possibilities for the use of the gas, or they can, and if that's the most feasible for the project, then I'm sure the people who are going to invest in the project may want to opt for that. So far, we have not received any joint proposal from CARICOM about the sale of our crude and then refining that crude to supply refined products to the region. There's no such thing. So I think maybe the president of the African Bank is saying that given we're a producer, a major producer, that may be an option, but there's no formal proposal before us. And when and if and when it's made, we will then examine it on its merit. But right now there is no proposal.
Okay, what I'd also like to get at is the fact that since you have said in the past that it's Guyana's preference that because it sells its crude openly on the international market, it gets the best prices, and that is your preference. So would you be open to a deal with the CARICOM region that allows them a discounted price or something like that?
That is something we have to examine only when we have a specific proposal. I don't want to deal with hypotheticals here because I just pointed out earlier about how we can get the price of refined products down in Guyana, even when we don't refine crude, by procuring in larger quantities and investing in storage capability in the country. If there is a proposal that where you may sell your crude at a particular price, but then get the benefit in refined products, then that is something we are exploring. In fact, we've been exploring that with U.S. companies too. We've been exploring that with a U.S. company where we would sell a quantity of our crude, and then they would resell us the refined or supply back us with the refined products at a lower cost than we are now procuring globally, which will end up with significant lower costs to our consumers here in Guyana. So we're open to exploring any option, but let's see it when it comes. There's nothing to talk about because there's no proposal now.
Okay, as the government moves forward and continues its spending, especially on infrastructure projects, do you have plans to close in on risk areas in the procurement chain for waste and corruption?
The thing is that a lot of their procurement, if you look at, for example, the housing, we spent about close to $300 billion on housing. No foreign company has been awarded these contracts. There a lot of talk about how Chinese companies, I dealt with that. If you look at the amount of, a lot of it is still ongoing, like the 20,000 houses on the East Coast. We are getting their output. We have major problems with delivery. Not so much the procurement, but delivery. People are slow to complete a lot of the projects that we have awarded. In housing, on infrastructure, young professional homes, and also the core homes. You know how many young professionals have come to me and said, the contractors are delayed a year, they're waiting, they're paying their mortgages, and their people are waiting. So we have a problem with many people, local contractors. Some are doing an excellent job, and many are not fulfilling their promises or doing substandard work. We have to fix that, apart from the procurement, to make sure that it is done well. But who do you go to then? If you don't have, people are at the limit, you'd have to engage foreign contractors. So we can then get a company to come in and do 2,000 houses of a particular standard because it's prefabricated and you move fast. And in the next term, I think we'd have to do about 45,000 houses. Now you're talking about that. So it's the balance between giving our people opportunities and getting the work done fast enough and giving some foreign companies a toehold. So it is procurement, but it's also a question of capacity, etc. But definitely strengthening procurement throughout it will be an important issue for us. I spoke about the last government, and I told you about what we put on the site. Transparency is not about the procurement, it's about ensuring that the citizens have the information to question it. And that's why every contract that we have given, awarded by NPTAB over a certain price, is now on that site. And the method of procurement. So whether it was competitive bidding or sole sourcing, you will see it there too. And you can then question, why did they sole source this project here? So those are done. So definitely yes, it is something that came up at the consultations about strengthening procurement. If you look at my speech there at the consultations manifesto, I spoke of that in great detail.
I'm also asking about like engineers, the government's engineers and public servants who are involved in procurement. Are there risk areas, especially with respect to engineers, to give padded estimates and things like that?
There is that. I came right here and said people do that. That they do. There are lots of things we have had to struggle with. For example, and I say it again, and we now have a greater handle on it, but 2 years ago, we had to go out and threaten people. We've had cases where they would award a contract. So a road would need maybe just rehabilitation, but on the bills of quantity, it will look like a completely new road. And then we award a contract for a new road, and then the engineer, we have had cases where the engineers go to the contractor and say, we will approve payments for the whole road if you share the money with us. But really, it should have been only about 60% of the road to be done. We've had that. We've had people falsified procurement, the evaluation by just, and it's laziness and neglect, but you get a result. For example, we found a few cases where the people doing the evaluation don't actually do the evaluation. One, they're a three-member panel selected randomly. One person would do it, and he would send it to the others, and they just sign the document. They wouldn't even look at the document. We've had cases where the announced price at the bid opening was used to do the evaluation and not the actual going through the tender document. There are lots of these things that happens. Remember, we're doing 10,000 contracts per year with these small roads and stuff like that. 10,000 of those. So you do have that sort of thing. But we nipped it because we went across the country. Ashley Singh, myself, the president, we traveled throughout, we warned the engineers, etc., and we saw a significant reduction and greater oversight. But whether it happens, sometimes yes, it does happen. So if you believe that on 10,000 contracts, look, this morning I got a call, we've awarded contracts 6 months ago, and the people haven't even started as yet. And some of them dug up the road in front of the people and then just moved off. One guy from Quarantine called me and said, the contractor, every 3 days, he's from their village too, and every 3 days they come, they throw 2 loads of sand, and then they move off again. That sort of thing happens, but given the scale of what we are doing, the transformation and the pace of transformation in this country, and the transparency putting up the bid prices and everything else, we have done 100 times more than APNU in terms of civil works, and we have been more transparent about it.
Okay, so I want to ask about, with respect to the political parties' positions on cash transfers, your political opponents, such as Nigel Hughes and Aubrey Norton, have floated the idea of being more predictable about the cash transfers, such as when you're going to give them, 1 a year, twice a year, whatever. Nigel Hughes has, for example, floated let's say a person gets a cash transfer every year on his birthday or something. I don't want to waste
my time with Nigel Hughes. Nobody pays attention with Nigel Hughes now. It's like, that's why people are not going to his meetings, because of the same, they see that there is no thought to it. Have you ever listened to them talk about wealth creation? Norton, Nigel Hughes, now that you mention him, or any of the others, they don't talk about the macro framework in which every single policy has to be situated. Your education strategy, your health strategy, your wages policy, the cash transfers, your oil and gas revenue, they never situate anything in that big picture. So everybody wants you to think they would come and talk only about the things that they think resonate with the voters. So we'll give you more money, we'll pay you higher wages, that's it. We'll give you a large sums of money. But to run a country sustainably, you have to generate wealth before you distribute wealth. And they don't talk about generating wealth. And all they talk about is reliance only on oil money. And we know the situation with oil money now. It's not there as yet of the magnitude that would allow us to do the things that they are even advancing. So how do if I take them on those issues, you know what it does? I play right into their hands, because that's what people want to hear. They like to hear, I'll get 500,000 per month or a year, and look what APNU is promising. They would not get it. They would never get it. But they don't talk about how do we create a situation where we avoid the Dutch disease. So that's why I don't want to go down that route, because it's nonsensical. for me, because I've run a Ministry of Finance before. I've been president. I've had to deal with the toughest era when we didn't have money to pay our debts. So I've seen the lay of the land. I've seen how people talk a lot, and they talk a lot of nonsense. We've had to have a sustained policy over these years. So Nigel Hughes, I don't know, but predictability. Oil revenue is not predictable. How can you distribute oil revenue predictably? Even oil revenue is not predictable, and they acknowledge that. Many times Skychor News have come here and said, what if oil prices fall? So that's my response to the predictability argument.
Oil revenues are not predictable.
Themselves. So
Okay.
you can't distribute.
Okay, finally, Guyana and the Dominican Republic have been strengthening relations regarding agriculture and oil and gas. I want to know if there are plans to pull in Brazil, who is our closest large oil producer, for cooperation in oil and gas.
Yes, when President Lula was here, and even when the president was back in Brazil, we've been discussing collaboration in that sector too, oil and gas sector. And I think it makes sense. Brazil is a big neighbor, a good neighbor, and we should also involve them in our discussions. Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, thank you.